Stewpot, Tales from a Fantasy Tavern. You run a tavern that is a favorite of adventurers far and wide, famous for its spicy sausage stew. Running a tavern is hard work, especially when there are adventurers involved, but at the end of the day, there's nothing else you'd rather do.
Welcome to Tabletop Talk, the podcast where I delve into the minds of tabletop gaming creatives. Join me as I uncover their creative process and inspirations. You are in the right place if you enjoy listening to thoughtful interviews with creative people.
Hi, this is Cam Banks, and when I'm not turning your favorite IP into a game you may have forgotten about, I'm listening to Tabletop Talk.
Howdy friends, Craig here. My guest today is Takuma Okada. Takuma is a game designer creating tabletop games and music under the name No Road Home. They enjoy designing games about strange and magical places, the everyday moments that occur there, and the sublime. Takuma, welcome to the third floor.
Thank you for having me.
So, you have been on my hit list for a good bit. I remember when I started hearing the rumblings about Stewpot, and then I backed it, and I read it, and then it seemed like out of nowhere, everybody was talking about it. So I pulled some strings with my friends at Evil Hat and was able to talk you into sitting down with me. But before we get into all of that, I am going to subject you to the one question you have gotten on every stupid podcast that you've ever been on, which is at one point you knew nothing about the hobby, knew nothing about tabletop gaming, having little character sheets, funny dice, and rolling it and pretending to be somebody else. And it was put in front of you for the very first time. Do you mind taking me back there?
Yeah, the first time I played a tabletop role-playing game that I can remember very clearly, at least, is D&D 3.5 edition back in the 6th grade, because I went to a weird charter school in California that had a game design course for 6th graders.
Get out.
Yeah. It was not really much of a class. We played some D&D, and then we played some Neverwinter Nights, and we did some level design in Neverwinter Nights, and that is most of what I remember from that class.
Oh, my daughter's turning 11 and going into 6th grade, and I would kill for her to have a class like that. That's incredible.
It was pretty fun.
You're a 6th grader, and you're there, and how is D&D presented to you? How was it laid in front of you for the first time?
I think it was the pretty typical, like, yeah, this is what D&D is. We're doing adventures where I'm an elf ranger, that kind of thing. There was all these cool character options because, it was 3.5. I can't remember if that was my first experience with D&D at all, or if I might have read about it in like some books before that, in like YA books and things like that. They're playing D&D, that kind of thing. But yeah, I like really was enjoying the typical D&D adventure story. I actually remember that I had animal taming as a skill. I really wanted to tame a dire owl, and they were like, you're like, level 5 or whatever. Like it's not going to be, but like you can roll for it, sure. And then I rolled a 20.
Nice.
And they had to give it to me. And that moment really stuck with me for a while. That was a really good intro to tabletop games.
So a lot of times, the first time it's put in front of us, we look at it, we play with it, and it's fine. And then it doesn't really come up again. And other times, it's just like, oh my God, I want to do this all the time. So how was that for you when you were first introduced? Was it like, this is fine, or was it like, oh my God?
It was just fine, I think.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing it in class, but I liked playing video games more at that time, I think, and also reading. I was a really avid reader for a really long time because I had very limited screen time. I wasn't allowed to play video games very much, so like getting to play like 15 minutes of Pokemon on a Saturday was like very precious, or like getting to spend a whole night playing it at like a sleepover, like that was the best. And it was hard for like D&D to compete with that. And yeah, I was just like reading a bunch of stuff and playing video games up until college. And in college, I was invited to join someone's 3.5 campaign.
And how did you get the invitation? So give me a sense of how did you spot them? They spotted you, or
they spotted me because I was doing theater at my community college. And this was my GM, my DM John was someone who was like hanging out with a bunch of the theater group, and would be in some stuff. So he was like talking about it, and I mentioned I'd played before, and he invited me to play, and I think I played that for about maybe a year or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that the time that you said this is something pretty special, or is it still kind of meh?
It was still kind of meh. It was fine.
Yeah. What was missing? So looking back on it now, do you have a sense of what was missing in those first 2 exposures?
I think that it was just my feelings on D&D as a game. It was I was coming from the second time in college. I was coming from a theater and improv background, and I had done some dramatic improv stuff in my improv class using Process, the book, like reading it, talking about it, doing some of the stuff in it. And I had really liked that aspect of improv. The comedic stuff is fine. I enjoy it, but people love to lean on like caricatures and stereotypes and sometimes racist jokes, and it just it was hard to click with that. But the dramatic stuff was really satisfying, and I was kind of chasing that feeling and looking for that, and like doing a lot of theater because I thought it could sort of give me the same thing, even if it wasn't quite as easy, auditioning and all of that. And I was playing D&D, and I don't think I was expecting it to give me that feeling, but I did want that feeling. That was kind of the high of like playing a character and that kind of thing that was in my mind. And if it wasn't hitting that, then it wasn't really as good, as satisfying.
It's funny you say that, because I think sometimes there's a promise that's made by D&D that isn't always fulfilled. And I feel like part of that promise can be that feeling of that epic drama and this overarching thing. And I think you and I share similar views on D&D. I'm glad D&D exists. I wouldn't, it was my first game too, right? Yeah. We're now in a world where there's just so many better games. And you can have that with D&D, but it's not built for that. It's something that everybody at the table has to bring with them and kind of tack it on. So I guess my next question is, as we go from signpost to signpost, is what was really for you the big game? The exposure that made you go, oh wow, this is something I really love.
I think that it might have been Follow by Ben Robbins.
Oh, interesting. Ben's been on the show. Yeah. No business being as good as they are at designing games.
Great games. I can't remember exactly, but at that same community college, I met a friend, Rachel, who introduced me to the podcast Friends of the Table, because I had been talking about, playing D&D and all of this, and I had started wondering about writing my own games. I was just like, okay, let me write some stuff. I was inspired by an unofficial fan translation of a Japanese tabletop RPG, which was drawing from a series of light novels, the Log Horizon tabletop game.
Oh, wow.
And I had read some of that unofficial fan translation. I was like, okay, let me pull some from this, some from D&D, because I think the thing about 3.5 that I really enjoyed was like all of the character options and the abilities and getting to customize all of that and doing really cool stuff in combat. I played one session of 5e at that time and just bounced off it because it was not giving me as much as 3.5.
Right.
So then I had started making, this silly crunchy system. And then they were like, hey, you should check out this podcast. It's like a really good tabletop podcast, and I had never listened to actual play before, but listened to their recommendation and was just like instantly hooked on how they were playing, and that quickly led me to joining the Discord for the fan Discord for that podcast, and from there playing tabletop games with the people in that Discord.
Was it a situation where you found with games like that Ben makes that you were able to lean into that more dramatic type of play that you enjoyed so much?
Yeah, it was, I think, a combination of the games were more accommodating to that, and I was also listening to the podcast and realizing, oh, you can do this kind of storytelling. These are the kinds of things you need to be thinking about. These are the kinds of ideas you can bring to the table. And that stuff had kind of been simmering before this. Like I had been doing creative writing. I had been taking writing classes at college, like, and all the improv and theater stuff. Like, it was ready to be activated somehow. But yeah, the games plus the podcast giving me an example of how that was done. And then the rules for the game being much more suited for that kind of thing was just the perfect spark to kind of be like, oh yeah, this is great. This is for me.
Now, you hinted, and I want to make sure I got this right. It sounds like even before you found the pod that you had already been thinking you wanted to make a game.
Yeah.
Which is interesting for me to hear because you had had a mediocre experience with it, but something is driving you to make your own for something that was kind of meh in your experience. So I want to get a sense of, where does that come from? Is that just a creative drive that you touch anywhere, or was there something specific about games? Like, why the desire?
Yeah, I think I've always really liked games. I think that me and my friends tried to come up with like a combat card game in elementary school in like 5th grade or something, where we were drawing stick figures with guns on little pieces of paper.
Oh my God.
And then I got really into Yu-Gi-Oh for a while. And I was in a boys chorus when I was out in California for a time when I was little. And we would play a lot of card games, and especially Egyptian War or Egyptian Rat Screw. Loved it. Played hours and hours of that. I love President as another card game. So I really, really liked games of all sorts. I mean, video games too. But yeah, playing D&D, I think, and kind of running into some frustrations, and also wanting like different types of things with it. Like I wanted an SCP type thing. That's what I was working on, was a
interesting.
Yeah, that kind of almost cosmic horror, anomalous like containment stuff. Like that stuff was really interesting to me, and I was like, okay, I want to make a game like that, not knowing anything about like Delta Green or whatever.
Right.
Blissfully unaware. But yeah, then the podcast, I started listening to it, and they were playing all of these different kinds of games, and it was just like, oh, I can just completely rethink what I know about games. Like there's so much more in common with like the improv games that I know. That's so much simpler, and like I can really kind of drill down to the specific thing that I want out of a game, and I can really do this. And I think, yeah, that combined with the creative writing class that I had been doing before that, and my professor Rob Green, who's also an author, he's great. But he like told me that I was like decent at writing, and that I had a decent shot of it, and I kind of took that with me as well. So
excellent. When you think about games that really tickled you, so if you now look back at all of these games you're exposed to through the podcast that you had a chance to play on the Discord, are there a handful of games that you consider to be like a big deal? As far as not necessarily you as a creator, but you as a player, right? As a participant, what are some of those big games for you looking back at it?
Ribbon Drive, for sure.
I don't know Ribbon Drive. What is Ribbon Drive?
Ribbon Drive is by Avery Alder.
God, another friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Amazing designer.
Yeah. And I can't stop talking about Ribbon Drive. I've brought Ribbon Drive up so many times, but it is really one of the most special tabletop experiences that I've had, where it is each player is coming in with a playlist that they've created
of music.
Podcast on the Brain, with a theme.
Okay.
And then you create characters and you go on a road trip. And you play the playlists. You use the first couple songs to come up with your characters, and then you just let a playlist play as you're kind of like role playing this road trip. And it works incredibly well. It's so easy to like come up with dialogue and like think about what your character's feeling and what they want in this context, and with the music playing. And then, like one playlist ends, it's kind of like an act ending, and you move to the next one, the next one. And when you've played through the playlists, the game's over.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and she always seems to have, there's always seems to be one little twist mechanically in her games that just makes it all just click, right? So the pitch you just gave, if I was not familiar with it being her game, I'd go, okay, yeah, all right, that makes sense to me. But I know if I go read it, about halfway or towards the end, I'd be like, oh, holy shit. Like, that's so smart.
I think I know what the twist is for this game.
Tell me.
Which is that when you write characters down, they have a name, I think 3 traits, and 2 futures.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the traits and the futures are pulled, at least, I think one of them is supposed to be pulled from the song lyrics of the first 2 songs that you listen to. But in practice, I feel like we try to pull from those as much as possible. But the thing is, you can cross out your futures when you realize that your character has kind of moved on from that, has let go of that, it wants something else now. And the first character to cross out both of their futures retroactively kind of becomes the protagonist of the story.
Oh my God, that's super interesting.
It's really, really good. And like from that point, the game is like kind of over, and you're kind of winding things down when that happens.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really satisfying twist.
This is gonna end up just being about her game. So it sounds like you also have that really dramatic moment of crossing out the future, and that could have a lot of weight to it, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can really feel it when you're playing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm gonna get back together with this person, or I'm gonna do this. I'm going to, go to space or something. I don't know. There's a wide range of stuff. Like, I'm gonna stop drinking.
Oh wow.
Like you can have a lot of different stuff, and like sometimes it's a character doesn't want to give that up, and sometimes a character does, and it's really interesting to see how a character thinks about that and reacts to it and like makes that decision. It feels really good.
I bet it rings to me a little bit like and this again, there's a difference between reading and playing a game, which is the more games I come across, I realize that you can read them, but until you play them, you don't know really understand what the hell's happening there. I'll never forget reading 1,000-Year-Old Vampire and it talking about erasing memories. And I was like, okay, that's interesting and stuff. And then I'm playing the game and I have to start doing it. And it was an emotional moment. That's what that rings towards, is that similar type thing. All right. So we spent 20 minutes talking about one of the games that meant a lot to you. I'd like to know a couple more. We'll spend less time on them.
Yeah.
Just games that punched you the way that game did.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a lot of the stuff that I played early on. The Quiet Year, obviously. That was also one of the first ones that I played and loved that. I love map drawing. Doomed Pilgrim from the Sundered Land, which is by the Bakers. It is a play-by-post game about
interesting.
A doomed pilgrim making a journey in the ruins of the future. And one person plays the pilgrim, and then everyone else online responds to their questions. And the pilgrim kind of like chooses which one that they're following, and you kind of go on their journey. That game is really, really fun with a group of people who are really into it, and we played a bunch of games of it just kind of continuously in a Discord channel for a while.
Nice.
And that's kind of been the gold standard of play-by-post for me. Like, I have tried to replicate that feeling or like a different approach. It's been so hard. I've played other play-by-post games too, and it's just nothing really quite comes close to how good that game is.
It's also a Baker game, right? So that's a pretty high jump. So Vincent McGay have been putting out some little zines here over the last 2 or 3 years, and I just got the Dreaming Avalon game. Oh yeah. And it just blows me away every time. And I'm never going to play all of those zines that I've backed, that I've been getting. I think they're doing like 1 or 2 a year now, but I get so much joy just out of reading them. It's fascinating to see how they think. So after the break, we're going to talk about Stewpot, but before we do, I want to get a sense of when you went from, maybe I'd want to make a game, and I'm seeing all these games and I'm realizing what's possible. Was there a conscious shift to say, look, I am going to make the game, or did the game start to emerge and you realized I have to make this? Does that make sense?
I think so. It happened pretty early on, I think.
Yeah.
Because I started listening to that podcast in at the end of the year in 2018. And by March of 2019, I had written a game.
Wow.
So it was very, very fast going from, because I had already been working on that more crunchy, more traditional SCP type game before that, and then picking away at it slowly and not putting a lot of energy into it. But once everything kind of clicked into place, I was running a bunch of games, I was playing a bunch of games, and a couple months later I was like, okay, I'm writing one. And I think game jams and things like that really accelerated that process. But yeah, it just kind of happened. It was I could apply this improv exercise that we did to a tabletop game format, and it was just really easy, and the rest is history.
The tradition of improv has so many games built into it to begin with, right? Karen 12's book that Evil Hat put out is a phenomenal example of that, of just some wonderful activities which are just games on their own. Team, the Insider Insight series allows me to sit down with designers, developers, artists, writers, and creators and learn how they approach their work. I try to understand their process, inspiration, and the methods for crafting their creations. I already talked about the fact that Stewpot kind of took over the world for a bit, and I want to figure out where it got started. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a D&D podcast with a dark side? Something more like Game of Thrones and less like Monty Python? Tale of the Manticore is part dark fantasy audio drama, part solo D&D RPG. There's no plot armor here. The dice make all the important decisions. Join me as I resurrect the excitement, wonder, and emotion of old school D&D. Made for a mature audience, Tale of the Manticore is both a fiction and a game. It's the story where chaos rolls.
So I think for the first thing, we need to kind of give people context, because Stewpot is very different. It is ideas that we saw all over the place, little things that just were put together and just worked together in a way that I think was truly unique, which is pretty amazing. But let's talk about the ad copy for it. Stewpot is a collection of cozy mini games that tell the story of a tavern run by former adventurers. Gather your dice, pick up a deck of cards, set aside a shiny coin, and get ready for a new set of challenges. Only this time, your adventures start behind the bar. So I'm going to ask you to go back in time again. The game is done right now. So it's a little bit easier to look backwards and know where it started. So when you think about where the first itch appeared, when was that? Something that would then become Stewpot. Can you take me back there?
I have been repeating the same thing over and over, but with Friends of the Table, with the podcast, their Hyron seasons are kind of a deconstruction of typical fantasy adventure stories. It's set in a post-apocalypse, and it's trying to kind of re-examine all of the typical fantasy tabletop game tropes, and doing them better, examining like the implications of the world building and stuff more. And I think I was drawing from that and some other fantasy things that also kind of examined fantasy in a similar way, like Log Horizon, like Dungeon Meshi, when I came up with the initial idea for Stewpot during a Friends of the Table inspired like fan game jam, actually.
Thank God for that podcast.
Oh, don't know where I'd be without them. That's funny, isn't it? Yeah. And I think it was originally just a quick little, okay, there's, 6 different prompts of, adventures running a bar, and you just roll a die and you pick one and you run with that, like little improv game type thing. Somewhere along the way, I was like, okay, I had this idea, but what if it was like a whole bigger game? What if each one of these prompts was a mini game in and of itself? This was after I'd played Firebrands and The Sundered Land, both mini game oriented games by the Bakers, and I really liked that aspect of it. I've always really liked stories that are told in pieces and parts and very distinct bits, vignettes. I'm a really big fan of the sci-fi author Cordwainer Smith and his short stories. I really liked his short stories, and they spanned like tens of thousands of years in the same kind of universe, and jumping between those points in time and completely different places and completely different vibes really, really inspired me. One of my biggest influences, I would say. And yeah, it felt natural to take that to a tabletop game, and seeing all this stuff that was like really specific and zooming in on this one aspect. I was like, yeah, let's do that with this game, with fantasy, and really kind of dig into the slice of life aspect of it, which I felt like was a little underrepresented in tabletop games as well. Like I really loved playing Ribbon Drive, but I wanted more like that, and there wasn't really much that kind of scratched that same itch. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this. This is where improv really shines. So
one of the central conceits is this is not a tavern we're going to between adventures, or where we're meeting in a tavern to become adventurers. One of the conceits is you're retired. It's over, right? And we're looking back. Was that a conceit you made from the beginning, or did that emerge as you started working this idea?
It was there, I think, from the beginning. At least when I started working on the bigger version, I have the original game idea somewhere. Let me see if I can dig that up.
Oh, find it. This is interesting.
Let's see. Stewpot folder.
So this will happen sometimes on the podcast, and what I learn is the folder structure of all my guests, because it's under this, which is here, and then I go there. I'm judging your level of organization right now.
It's a little messy. It's a little messy. There's a lot of Google Docs in here. Ooh, yeah, okay. The original idea that I wrote down does not have the retirement aspect in it at all.
Interesting.
Where
can you read it to me?
Did that come from?
Can you read it to me? The original.
Yeah. Stewpot, Tales from a Fantasy Tavern. You run a tavern that is a favorite of adventurers far and wide, famous for its spicy sausage stew. Running a tavern is hard work, especially when there are adventures involved, but at the end of the day, there's nothing else you'd rather do. And then the prompts are 1, a fight breaks out, 2, a returning group of adventurers throws a party, 3, a quiet night, 4, a fire almost burns the tavern down, 5, a festival is going on today, and 6, a face you haven't seen in years shows up.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think the like retirement jobs aspect came from, I think Log Horizon has this going on where they have a combination of, and like other MMORPGs,
Right.
where you can have like the kind of like combat classes, you know, you have your mages and your swashbucklers and your enchanters and all of that, but you also have kind of a job, whether it's like woodworking or fishing or whatever, and you can level that up the same way you level up your combat classes. So I was taking like that kind of idea and also looking at, I think, stuff like Moonlighter. I think that was about the right time for that, the video game where you're running a shop and then going in dungeon diving and bringing stuff back to sell in your shop. And originally I had like 2 ideas for the bigger version of Stewpot, which was that there was the longer form version where you would do a little bit more Moonlighter, Log Horizon type stuff, where you started out with 1 experience in each job, your adventure job and your town job, and you would gain coin over the course of the game and use that coin to upgrade your tavern and to get more experiences for both of your jobs. And then the one-shot version was the version that survived to now, is that you start off with adventure ones, then you cross them off and switch them to town ones. And I was really enjoying writing the mini games, but I was really struggling with the overall structure for like the long form one. And a friend told me, hey, you should just focus on the one-shot version. And that made a lot of sense, and it made working on it a lot easier. So thank you to my friend Sam for suggesting that.
So talk to me about why, though. So it seems obvious now why that advice was so good. Looking back on it, what did it get out of the way by you focusing on that version and building from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall structure of like a campaign is difficult. Like even if you've written a bunch of games like that, it's still difficult. It's a lot of great campaign games don't have good advice for how to structure it and what you should do in the long term, and especially how to like end a game.
Oh, good point.
And the way that Friends at the Table used Firebrands as a like season finale game, I think was part of the inspiration there. Is why I was doing that like job switching over thing. And yeah, that really appealed to me, is like, okay, you can play out your whole campaign and then do this at the end and give it like the appropriate send off. That was really cool. Using a different game for that, like really wild. But it kind of went back to that liking short stories thing and liking telling stories with multiple games. And yeah, the campaign version really kind of felt like, oh, I'm just doing this because I should, right? Because this is what games are. They, you play them for a bunch of sessions and your character slowly gets better. And not doing that because of what was expected or like what I was like, this is what games should be, right? Was really freeing.
Yeah.
And I did want to do that. I wanted to cut out that stuff. I wanted to cut out the coin mechanics and not have to worry about the long term. And yeah, I'm really glad I did, although I do partially crave a really long term slice of life game like that.
When you look back at it, what was the mini game that you consider the first fully baked one, right? So I would imagine that there was, and if I'm wrong about this, correct me, but I imagine that they were all being built around the same time. I would imagine you were hopping back and forth, but can you give me an idea of which one was at the version that I read now when I open my book? So which one got finished, quote unquote, first for you?
Which one was it? Actually, I have written those mini games at vastly different times.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so there were a couple that were very early on. Glass of the Gods is one of those, because it was pulling a lot from a manga I really like called Bartender. And like every chapter is someone comes into this kind of quiet, unassuming bar and is having troubles, and the bartender like listens to them and makes them a drink based on what they're going through. And it was really easy to pull that and turn it into its own game. That might have been the first.
Okay.
It was definitely really early on. Sliced was also really early on because it was pulling from Delicious in Dungeon Meshi, with like cooking monsters and what it was like to cook monsters and how to do that. But the final form of that game took a really long time to figure out. I had like lots of like different versions of that game over time. But Glass of the Gods was... Oh, sorry.
I'm interrupting you, but what was the bugaboo? What couldn't you figure out that it was causing you to go take a shot at it, miss, take a shot at it, miss, take a shot at it, go back to it? And then the next obvious question is what made it all click? So can you give me an idea about that struggle? Because that's super interesting.
Yeah. I think that having someone come up with a dish was... I couldn't figure out how to make that easy for the player. Just come up with a whole thing that is like interesting and you can add your own twist to it and all of that. I, originally went like the rollable tables route,
right?
And like pick lists and just like, okay, kind of figure it out. But I slowly added more and more complicating layers to that. I borrowed the other kind dice stuff from Cyrun, which had different people giving input on the dish and like how different aspects of it went. Yeah. I pulled card mechanics from my game Alone Among the Stars, which is also drawing from stuff like Quiet Year with like, okay, yeah, each card means a thing, but the like broad categories, and then making them more specific based on like the ranks of the cards. That really helped. Really glad I had that to draw on. And just adding more specifics, adding more restrictions, and then adding a couple steps that really kind of helped you go on this journey of getting the monster parts and creating the dish and how people react to it afterward. It was this whole journey that you go on in just this little mini game.
Yeah. And with Slice, did you know when you wrote it that you finally got it, or did you have to see it in play before you realized you got it?
I had a pretty good feeling, I think, once I got to the other kind dice stuff, but I did need to play it because I had tried to play it before and it had gone okay. Game feels, pretty important to me, and there's a lot of stuff where I try it and I'm like, this went fine. Everyone had a good time, but it just didn't have it for me. And I need to get to that feeling or it will not be complete.
So somewhere in a notebook or in a complicated file structure on your computer, there is a mini game that didn't make it.
Yes.
And I would love to know one of those. One that you did some work on and for whatever good reason, you ended up abandoning it for never or for later. Can you think of one?
I'm trying to remember which... It's been a while. It has been a while.
That's the hard part about being on my stupid podcast is I ask designers to talk about games they forgot about. It's a very unfair thing of mine. But maybe a core concept or a core idea that maybe you've put on a shelf that you're going to maybe grab later, but was originally going to be part of Stewpot that ended up getting shelved. Does that ring at all?
Yeah, I mean the coin stuff. I wanted the tavern building stuff to be a little more crunchy originally.
Why did you want that, and then why did you decide against it?
I think it was getting in the way of the rest of the game, because the level of abstraction from you do a thing in a game and you earn coin and then you spend that coin to get this thing. I didn't feel like I needed that extra
step
in between. You could just do the thing in the game and then change your tavern.
Isn't that funny?
It's just right there.
Super obvious, right? Or we can add a coin.
And I think also, like, as a beginner game designer at the time, like, I don't know if I want to like put all of this work into a crunchy system, and then also, yeah, like I don't know if it's my forte. And I think even now, I like certain aspects of crunch, but I'm like working on a game right now that pulls exactly as much as I need and find satisfying. And I've gotten much better at articulating, okay, this and this and this part interests me, and this is how I can support all of that, so that you only have to focus on like these 3 complicated rules. But you know, at the like 5 years ago, I don't think I was very good at doing that yet. So it helped get that out of the way. I also have found one of the mini games that did not survive, which is the carouse mini game.
Interesting.
Which was, I believe, is that a Dungeon World move that's named after?
Oh, that rings a little bit. Honestly, it's been so long since I've read Dungeon World. I don't know.
I also do not remember, because it's...
Yeah, I should go back and read that again. It's been a while. Yeah. The last time I read it, I can see there's talk of making a second edition, mm-hmm. and I understand why. It was cutting edge at its time, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's aged a little bit. But yeah, so carouse. So what was the core concept of carouse?
That is, a group of adventurers have returned triumphant, loaded with new gear and lots of gold and appetites, huge appetites. And yeah, that was going to be all about just like, they're spending a lot of money, you're making a ton of food, you're having a great time, but it's also kind of hectic. That kind of turned into a little bit Festival Day.
Got it.
So some of the energy of that is still there, but the concept is completely different. And I do regret not having that a little bit, but I think, well, because I really liked the aspect of adventurers are coming to you for advice because you're experienced. You know, that's in some other things like A Glass of the Gods.
Right.
But I do think it fell by the wayside a little bit as the game changed over time and became much more about your adventures and them making that transition.
So, and imagine there's a period of time where Stewpot you're spending time with it, right? You're working on stuff. When in that process does Evil Hat become a factor, and how does that happen?
Yeah. I started working on the game in 2018. I had written that down in like April or something of that year, and then picked it up and started working on it seriously at the end of the year. And then I released it on itch about a year after that. I think actually at about Big Bad time. And I think Sean came and talked to me at the con to be like, hey, we're interested in publishing this. And I was...
What was that like?
I was feeling complicated. That was a strange time in my life, because I was still in college.
Wow.
And I was balancing game dev stuff with college and like wondering how seriously I was going to do this, but like feeling more and more like I really wanted to spend a lot of my time and energy on it. And yeah, getting to go to Big Bad for the first time was a really, really cool experience. And a lot was happening at once, and I was just like, I don't know about this. Do I really want to like go through this whole publishing process? Like, am I ready for that? Can I really like deliver this game in the time frame that they want? Do I want to make some like compromises based on what they need for the publishing side?
What were some of those compromises?
I don't think we talked about that in detail at the time. I can talk about what it's been like in the past couple years since I started working with them. I think I've had less control over the format of the book. stretch goals and stuff. I'm not a huge fan of stretch goals, although I love everyone who came and did stretch goals on the book. There are a lot of people that I really respect and enjoy the work of. So that was really cool. But I don't know. In crowdfunding campaigns, I feel like they're kind of a weird incentive that I don't really agree with.
It's an odd one.
Yeah,
for sure. And one that as a chronic backer, means nothing to me. Like, and obviously it means a lot to somebody. There's a reason it's being done because there's people that care about it. But for me, it's just like, once I've backed the game, then, if the stretch goal is $2,000 away, I'm not doing anything about that. I've already backed the goddamn thing.
Yeah.
So it is funny, but obviously it works. Could you walk me through that decision-making process then, between Sean approaching you, the conflicting thoughts that you had? What made you finally go, okay, let's do this?
I think it was about 2 or 3 years later that I actually reached back out. There was a long period of time because while I was debating this, I did my first Kickstarter for Zine Quest beginning of 2020, and that went really well. And I was like, okay, I could do a smaller, like indie release on my own of Stewpot. Like, maybe I don't need to like go this route, and I can just take my time and work on that over time. And then the pandemic hit,
right?
And even just like a Zine Quest project I barely got that over the finish line with the help from a lot of people. And I started working for Publishing Goblin, working on Confluence: The Living Archive in 2021. And I started to realize, okay, this is so much work. I don't really enjoy the like layout and like distribution and like printing process. Like, that's not really something that I enjoy after having gone through that in the middle of the pandemic. And
right.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I think maybe it would be better to work with someone who can handle all of that, and also, somewhere that has more reach than I do. And luckily I reached out and asked if that offer was still on the table a couple years later, and it still was. They worked it out with me.
That's cool. Now, as you look back on all of it, has it surprised you? And if so, why? So is once the game, because the game gets out there, right? It's not yours anymore, right? It's done. It's printed. It's sitting on my bookshelf. I'm going to play it on my channel at some point. You're not part of this process anymore, right? What has surprised you since that's happened? And that might be feedback you've heard, ways you've seen it being played, things that have been talked about the game. What has surprised you the most?
I think the reach of it has been really surprising.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't know. I've seen a decent number of actual plays of it, streams of it, that I don't think I was really expecting. I don't know. I've mostly been pleasantly surprised, but not like incredibly surprised or anything. It's the fact that it has reached so many people is really wild. But besides that, the thing that I often say about my games is that other people are much better at playing them than I am.
I believe that. I totally can believe that. And it's funny because the other thing I feel bad about is, when I talk to designers, is I'm asking them to talk about a game that they probably kind of fucking hate now because you have been in Stewpot for so long, and now you're finally free of it. And then some jerk with a podcast is like, let's talk about that. Like, at one point, there's an unreleased episode. It was my interview with Steve Jackson, like the original Steve Jackson. Yeah. And, I'm an old dude, right? So like I grew up with his games, and I want to talk to him about GURPS. And he made it very clear that's the last freaking thing in the world you want to talk about. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. That's fair. That's fair. So I guess here's the question. Do you find yourself ever coming back to it, or has that already happened where you have then had enough distance by time and space where you've come back to it, and looked at it again, or maybe pulled it out again and played it? Or is it's on the shelf where it belongs and it's something you're proud of, but you may never come back to it?
I will probably play it again. I haven't since finishing the stretch goal mini games. I tested those a couple times after I was done writing them, and that was really fun, and like getting to play new games, but in that was really good. But I don't think I ever got like sick of playing it. It's
that's good,
comfortable for me to play. And I mean, I designed it that way, right? Like with the way that the prompts are written and the level of detail, that was kind of like what I felt I needed to be able to role play my characters and like make the decisions in the game. I would play it again, but I don't think I am like actively seeking to at this moment. But
it's fair.
I might run it at a like indie game night locally. I've been thinking about that. And those kinds of things. So I'm not opposed to it.
Well, and something that's unique, I think, about a role-playing game versus, say, a board game or even a miniatures game is that adding the other people to the table just inherently makes it a new experience, which may not be the case if I pull out, Terraforming Mars for the 15th time and I play it with all new players. It's still the same freaking game, right? Whereas, as many times as I've played For the Queen, different every time. It hits differently every time. And the great games are the ones that deliver despite, those variations. So guys, we're going to take one more break. When we get back from this break, we're going to stop talking about what we make. We're going to talk about what we consume. We're each going to take our turns and talk about one thing to share. We'll be right back. This is the part of many podcasts where someone comes on, interrupts the show, and explains that you should consider paying for the content that you're listening to right now for free. That pitchman explains by giving $1 or more a month, you not only support the show, but you allow the show to grow and improve. Here on the third floor, we refuse to interrupt your episode of Tabletop Talk with such time-wasting pleas. We pledge never to run a spot asking you to go to patreon.com and give $1 or more a month because supporting content creators keeps the content coming, even if there is a link in the show's description. And there is. We don't ask you to click it and become a patron. We don't waste time rambling about the benefits like early access to episodes, getting episodes without ad breaks like this, or even getting a chance to play in one of Craig's RPG sessions. Anyway, enjoy this episode knowing Tabletop Talk, despite being supported by its patrons, won't engage in such blatant appeals for support. I have found that a nice end cap to these interviews is to find out what's inspiring you now as somebody who's consuming games, right? Or consuming movies or reading books. I find it very interesting now that we've learned where you started, kind of your creative process that you've gone through. When you put all of those notebooks away, when you turn off the computer, or at least close all of your Word documents, and you are actually entertaining yourself, what is something that's gotten its hooks into you the same way Stewpot has gotten its hooks in other people?
Well, I think my game currently is 1000 times Resist.
Ooh, I don't know this. Talk to me.
Written 1000x Resist, which is a narrative-focused video game by, I think, the studio Sunset Visitor. And surprise, surprise, it's a bunch of like artists and like theater people who made this game. But it is about it is a sci-fi game about a sort of alien invasion causing a pandemic similar to, COVID. But that's much more deadly, and ways that humanity tries to preserve itself, which leads to cloning.
That's interesting.
And the story kind of jumps back and forth in the timeline between 1,000 years in the future when this one high school girl who was cloned hundreds of thousands of times for thousands of years. Her clones have become their own kind of like society in this secure compound. And what happened in the past.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's so hard to describe this game. Because it is doing so many things. But it is, I think, deeply about family and memory and diaspora and connection with other people.
It's got an element of sci-fi that I absolutely love, and my favorite sci-fi always does this, which is to say, okay, this is true. Now what does that mean? And going through the implications of saying this is true. Speaking of Ben Robbins, In This World is one of my favorite games of his. And that's exactly everything about that game is you say, okay, this is true. Now what does that mean? And it sounds like there's a touch of that there. I mean, the idea of a society of the same cloned person, like what does that freaking look like? And like I'm already, my mind, that's the best sci-fi, right? Your mind starts going, well, geez, then that means this could be that. Like, oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah, they do an incredible job with like distinguishing between different characters, even though they're all based on the same character model. Like how do they distinguish them? There's a whole system of colors, and then the hair and everything, and the mannerisms, and the voice acting in that game is incredible. It is like some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in a game or anything really.
Right.
And yeah, lots of questions about personhood.
I bet. All right, my one thing worth sharing is also a video game. And what I can't remember is if somebody on the podcast recommended this to me, or I don't know how this got onto my radar, but have you played Blueprints yet?
Yes,
Holy shit.
What a game.
What a game. And so the first thing is you're going to laugh. I think it took me months before I got the joke of the name. So it's see, right? Like you thought for a half second I was an intelligent human being, didn't you? Then you realize I'm not. So it's, for those listening, it's blue, like the color, and then Prince as in the son of a king, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't know why it's called that. And all throughout the game, there are literally blueprints of buildings, and you're building a building. And then just one day I went, oh shit. Where I think anybody with a brain bigger than mine, which is probably everybody, saw it from the beginning. But anyway, for those that have not played this game, it is a really interesting game because it just starts. And mechanically, it's pretty simple. It teaches you as you play. It's not real clear why we're doing what we're doing, but we're given a goal. You need to get from the starting room to this room, and you're picking rooms as you go and slowly building out this mansion. And at the end of the day, it starts all over again. But you're building off of previous attempts and previous days. And so that by itself is super interesting, right? It's got the exploration. You find new rooms. You start realizing how rooms work with each other. You have a limited number of you have a timer of steps and so on and so forth. Then other things start happening as you're playing the game, and you realize that there's a story here that you're discovering as you discover new things, and a new room comes into play, and it tells you about the world in the process. And it's a little bit of magic. The game is a little bit of magic. And what I find most fascinating is I have never seen anything quite like it. And I am dying to see what's next. And I don't necessarily think it'll be from that publisher, but I think this is one of those cornerstone games that's going to kind of change things. And I think I imagine myself 5-10 years from now interviewing somebody who's made a video game, and they'll go, Blueprints was the game that made me change how I think about things. I think it's one of those games.
It's really special.
Yeah, it's a pretty special game. And I put it down for a while, and I find myself thinking about it, and pick it back up again.
You know, it's funny because on this screen, I'm reading, and on the right-hand side,
because you're like, okay, let's just do one more day. We'll just do one more track.
It made me really
And then you get to the final goal, and the game, you realize the game just started.
That was great.
Right, when you finally get to that final room, you're like,
I have a pet
I've
peeve
not
about
done
getting
that.
people's
I've
names
not
right, so
picked it
your
back up in a
approval
while.
means a lot.
No, it's important.
It's great.
I appreciate it.
It
Yeah.
really, and then
No, it very much is.
I don't want to spoil. It's hard because I like there's certain discoveries that I was like, holy shit, but I'm not. I don't want to take away from the experience.
That was a phenomenal
There's
conversation.
a lot of things
and
to
we
do on a
followed
Monday
each other
night, like picking up
perfectly.
blueprints again, so you finally can
That was
finish
great.
it. But
Thank
you
you.
decided
That
to
was
spend
really
it with
good.
me, and I
Thank
very
you.
much
I'm
appreciate
really
that.
enjoying it. I'm having a great time.
makes
It's
me
been
happy.
really lovely.
Good,
It's been a great conversation.
I'm glad. And for
So
those
to
of
give
you
you a little
listening,
bit of a
guess
feel,
what? I'm going to
the
introduce
end.
the game,
Listen
read
to the whole
little blurb,
damn interview, and I very,
add
very
copy
much
from it.
appreciate that.
And then
If you've got enough
I'm gonna
spoons,
try to
make sure you're
follow
taking
you
care
on
of
the
yourself.
journey.
And if you've got a few
So
extra, take care of
unfortunately,
somebody
you've
else.
probably made 15 games.
You're the best.
Sorry.
No, it's funny because on this screen, I'm reading, and on the right-hand side, I saw your thumbs up in the peripheral, and it made me really happy. So thank you. That was great. I have a pet peeve about getting people's names right, so
Yeah.
your approval means a lot.
No,
in that
it's
scenario.
important. I appreciate
It
it.
is.
Yeah.
No, it very much is.
You are a great guest.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a phenomenal conversation, and we followed each other perfectly. That was great. Thank you. That was really good.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a great time.
That makes me happy. Good. So to give you a little bit of a feel, I'm going to introduce the game, read the little blurb, add copy from it, and then I'm going to try to follow you on the journey. So unfortunately, you've probably made 15 games since Stewpot, so you're going to have to dig into your memory banks a little bit. But what I try to do is understand, and really to help inspire other people, like it starts off with an acorn, right? And this over time, it's not magic. It's work and creative decisions. So that's kind of what we'll talk about. Is that cool? Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Good stuff. You have another 10 minutes in you?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, beautiful. So this next segment, I'm going to ask you something that you're grooving on right now, book, movie, video game, another RPG, whatever it might be, just something that's gotten its hooks into you. And then I'll quickly share one of mine, and then you'll be free to go. Does that sound good?
Great.
All right, great. I'll bring us back. That was a phenomenal interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We covered a lot in an hour. Thank you. That was really, really good. I don't know if Sean warned you. I have an embarrassing backlog. I don't know exactly when this will come out, but I will give you the heads up and let you know. And I owe you a big favor. So if there's a world where I can return this favor, just let me know. Okay.
Yeah. No. Totally.
Awesome.
No
it was
rush.
a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
great
before
meeting you.
I can't let you go yet. Wait.
Oh,
That was
oh.
enough. Hey, are you still here? Look, the podcast is over, and you sat through all of the breaks and bloopers? Well, I mean, if you're here, you might as well run over to patreon.com and become a supporter. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast, too, while you're at it, on whatever platform you're listening to. I do appreciate you sticking around. Take care.